Hey,
Happy Monday, guys.
happy Monday. It could be your motivational Monday. It might be your mindful Monday. Or you're with us and it's the Monday Rundown.
Say that.
We're your co-hosts, Janelle Villiers. That's Winston Broderick over there in my other box. And we love our Monday rundowns because we get to talk about all the things we don't get to talk about on our Wednesday shows, which are more business related. You guys have been giving us amazing questions. Please keep them coming. Send us your questions and let us know what you'd like us to answer. Because on the Monday rundowns, what we get to do is we answer your question, but then we also look to other content creators, other thought leaders on the same topic to see what they have to say. And so we all end up learning together. It's brilliant and we love it.
Say that. Say that. All right. So today is another Monday. Let's jump into it and see what we got.
Should we avoid getting into arguments?
This feels like it's a trick question, right?
It does, right?
It's like it seems too easy, but you're like, wait, what?
I think we should. I want to say yes. You know, it's funny. Winston and I off before recording a conversation that we've revisited several times, but one that we recently revisited was this thought that he and I both had when we were younger, that when you were in a relationship and you saw the people arguing in a relationship, that was a sign that like it was a bad relationship.
Yeah.
And now as we've grown up and we've learned more and all that other stuff, we recognize it's not the arguing, because all people in relationships argue. It's how you argue and maybe even disagree, right? And so to that end, about it being a trick question, it's like maybe we should, I don't know if we should avoid it, or just be more present to how we are arguing.
There we go. Yeah. I was going to say, I don't think it's because you're going to get into them. So are there times where you could avoid an argument, maybe based on just changing how you're choosing to see something, or maybe not letting something get you, maybe more emotional, but let's say you are having all those things, you are emotional, you are feeling like there's something that we should discuss, and it's not maybe coming up in a way that you'd like to, and then you have to have an argument, or it needs to. See, I think that maybe that's where I'm getting tripped up. I feel like argument has a negative connotation.
Yeah.
But Janelle, it's funny. That's what it also makes me think back to what we were talking about before, but maybe that's just because of what I was taught. And
right.
And if you're taught no, arguments are good, then it changes the whole paradigm of it all, right? And so I think we should have arguments, and what we need to work on more is how we have arguments. How do you argue? Because you're going to have them, and because you're going to have them, what you're going to have the most success is by learning how to have effective arguments.
Yeah.
So I think to answer the question, I don't think we should avoid. I don't think we should avoid arguments, because usually in my mind, when something has gotten to a point where you feel it needs to be argued out, you probably care a lot about it, or feel, have a lot of emotions involved in it, and so it's something you should be discussing, and not discussing it is not emotionally healthy. It's not an emotional healthy thing to do.
Yeah, because then you're just
I don't think we should. Yeah, so I don't think, because of what I'm assuming is how this is being presented, there's something that we need to discuss and we're not discussing it. So should you kind of like brush it under the rug? And I don't think that that's a good idea. I definitely think you should find a way to discuss whatever it is that you want to argue out, or
Yeah, I agree.
All
right. So Winston and I are on the same page here. So let's see what we've got from our content creators. We're back with the School of Life. You know how much we love them. You love them. We love them. We all love them. Let's get back to them. Let's see what they have to say on the matter.
Let's do it.
However deep our theoretical commitment to serenity, in the course of an average day, we're likely to encounter a number of extremely well-crafted invitations to lose our tempers badly. Our partner will press a well-flagged nuclear button related, let's imagine, to their views on our mother or our career choice. At work, a colleague may deliberately not answer a very simple question to which we urgently need an answer. A shop attendant may give us a bored, insolent shrug. Someone in the supermarket may falsely accuse us of standing in the wrong line. What we're apt to miss at such moments of blatant provocation, as we get swallowed up in fears of humiliation, illogicality, and injustice, is just how much many people enjoy having arguments, indeed crave them, in order to re-find their equilibrium and appease their psychic discomforts. We're tricked into imagining that there may be genuine issues that require our wholehearted engagement, but thereby lose sight of the true psychological motivations at play. A person is trying to get us into a fight, not because they have a sincere complaint against us, but because they're feeling overwhelmed by the intensity of their own aggression, which they hope to placate by spoiling a portion of our lives. By goading us into battle, they're looking for a way to evacuate their fury into us, to use us as a receptacle for their emotional waste, to employ a skirmish with us to distract themselves from their own intractable conflicts and muted sorrows, to seduce us into joining them in their sadness and entanglements so that they might feel less alone and less bereft. We should resist such enthusiastic and subtly crafted invitations by recognizing them for what they are, attempts by the other party to rescue themselves from unbearable feelings. We might, if we're feeling exceptionally generous, pity them for their despair, but we don't in any way need to join them in their gladiatorial quests. What may at times provoke us to a particular pitch of excitement is a puzzlement as to why others are behaving as they are. Why on earth we wander in a strangled way? Have they once again mentioned something we implored them to leave alone? Why are they being almost deliberately slow or rude or surly? Why is someone who should be kind and thoughtful suddenly so offhand and cruel? It's our wide-eyed quest for sensible answers that ends up fanning our upheaval. We should answer our bafflement with far greater simplicity and therapeutic rigor. There aren't any good reasons for the discord. It's just that our interlocutor is in a very bad way and has concluded, not incorrectly alas, that they may feel significantly better once we have started to raise our voice, redden, and call them horrible names we'll later regret with intensity. We should work out the clever game and refuse to play any further rounds of it, whether the invitee is our spouse, a stranger, our child, or a colleague. We're not being kind by leaving them to it. We're not being pacific or eerily grown up. It's just there is so much else that needs our attention. We have to hold on to our thoughts, repair our wounds, appease our turmoils, and discover our own routes to happiness. We must sidestep the many dragnets because we have so many other, truly more important things to do.
All right. So I definitely think I got that wrong. which I'm actually very, very happy about.
Okay, so let's start there. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think
wrong? I don't know if there's anything to get wrong.
Well, from the sense that to the question, from what I took from the narrator is we shouldn't be having arguments because it means that you've allowed yourself to be pulled into something or coaxed into something, and it wasn't discussion. And I think that's where I was getting, like I said, the word was what was throwing me off. It wasn't like they were talking about discussing something, which is having a back and forth about something that you could not be having a good experience with. But arguing, and that's what I took from what they said, is not discussing something. It's someone choosing to, they're having they're going through something emotionally and are choosing to make you the focus of that negative experience that they are having. And that it was what I was thinking initially when it comes to the word argument. It doesn't feel like a discussion or a discourse. It feels like, it just doesn't feel great. Like arguments don't feel great to me.
Right.
But I guess it depends on the side of, on where, see, that's the other thing I think that was in the back of my mind. There's something I've listened to where they talk about the emotional scale, and they were like, depending on where someone is on the emotional scale, it's difficult to tell a person who was in depression that anger is not the right emotion to have, because you have to recognize on that scale, anger is actually is higher than being depressed. Because at least when you're angry, there's a sense of power and control, and in depression there isn't one. And I think that was playing in the back of my mind as I'm thinking, well, maybe for someone, this place of arguing something out could be a better emotional state for them than not. But I don't think that's what this question was discussing.
No,
I
so
think it may have just been in a very general place, not a place of, well, they were feeling this way, Winston, so now you got to understand that now they're arguing, it makes them feel better. And that's not the context this question was asked in.
True. I think what the School of Life talks about, I would actually define that as bickering. When someone like presses, when they that whole nuclear button thing, I immediately start thinking about, okay, so full disclosure, my parents have been married for now 50 years, right? So this is a long time. And so they know each other, including knowing the things that like aggravate the other person, right? And I mean like little things, washing plates versus putting them in the dishwasher, right? As an example, right? Like we're not solving world peace here. These are like silly little things. And one person doesn't do it the way that the other person wants. And they're like, well, why'd you do it that way, right? Knowing that even bringing it up is going to get the other person like annoyed and riled up, right? Like, and then now they're like going back and forth about this ridiculously inconsequential thing. And as he was describing it, I have seen that play out so many times. I mean, I'm using my parents as an example, but they're not the only ones. I've seen other people do it.
No, absolutely.
When he said like the nuclear button, it's like they know the button, they know the thing that's going to make you upset. And so they literally talk about that thing because to what they said is like they are emotionally going through something and they're trying to like get you upset. And guess what? They know exactly
to get you in there
in order to get you riled up. So like I can see how that happens, and it's making me reflect. Let's stick to my parents as the example, but it's making me reflect. Like, I wonder because when it happened in front of me, I was like, who cares? Washing the dishes, put it in the dish, like, who cares, right? Like, but it was like a big thing. And now I'm looking back and I'm like, I wonder what emotional pressures they were going through leading up to that moment. And that was just like the thing that like they wanted to release. And the way to release is by like getting the other person like riled up and they knew the button to press. And so now I'm just kind of looking at that situation a little bit differently. Like, oh man, like maybe the real question to ask when they do that, or I'll say it's for me, if someone knows me enough to say something that's going to press my buttons, maybe the question I should ask is before I get like riled up in return, it's like, everything okay? Yeah, like, you good? What's going on?
I've seen something. I saw something where what you just explained is how they encourage you to respond to something like that. They're like, when someone's doing something and you can identify for yourself, I think that's the real, I guess, success is the fact that you're aware that this person is going through this and you can stop and say, I wonder what's going on because this bothers me.
Right.
So what's going on with you? Because this is the I guess the overall mindset you should have is, I don't think this person wants me to be mad. Let's say it is a romantic relationship. I think many of us would assume our partner doesn't want us to have a poor experience for the most part. But can you be honest to admit there are times, and I'm actually blessed that like even now in my relationship, I can recognize there are times where I know I'm not feeling the best, and I don't intellectually think I don't want her to feel good, but I know I do things that aren't things that I would do to help her feel good.
Right.
And I'm becoming. I know I don't always catch it, and you usually have to be told, hey, you're doing that thing again, and it then helps me go, oh, I don't think I feel good. And it's, oh, really? Because sometimes you're not always able to catch when you fell into whatever you fell into. It's sometimes when you're stuck in the mud, you're like, oh, I don't feel great right now. And you're not always able to pinpoint it. So it makes me not laugh, but listening to what your parents is describing, because I know I have things that are my dishes.
Yeah.
That are, and to even last week's episode, it makes me think, but some of those, responses that I have aren't my active response. It's just an old habit of responding. Because I'll be fine. And to your point, I wonder if they're both being great and then the dishes thing is there. Because I'm sure they have examples when they were in a great mood, the dishes thing happened, and they didn't let the dishes be that trigger that day or that moment. I'm sure they've laughed it off, maybe did them together, however. And then there are other times where, to your point earlier, they weren't in a great space. And so the dishes at that point then becomes and here they go with the dishes again. Exactly. Exactly. It's like, oh, here we go with the dishes again. Like they knew I would, but it's like, but if you could catch that, you know what? You probably weren't feeling great. And then you chose to notice the dishes.
Right.
And that was what happened. It wasn't, no, I was in a great mood. And then I chose to, no. You weren't feeling the best. And then the dishes, became aware to you. And then it's like, oh, I can choose to make this. I know I used to have this big beef about shoes being placed a certain way. And then I remember there was one day where I remember seeing a shoes put, and I was like, that's not actually anything. And I was like, oh my God, I've been letting this thing be something. So, and it's silly because it's in your head. You're like, well, what's the big deal? But it's, because even I'm sure someone's listening to the dishes like, are you guys serious? They're fighting over dishes and choosing to make it a bigger stir. But it's like, no, it wasn't really about the dishes. It's what you said. They were probably just not feeling great or feeling overwhelmed about other things, health, life, everything. And the dishes are just an easy excuse to, or not an excuse, excuse me. The dishes are something you can choose to now make, the reason for your anger. So I love your example, actually, because I could see it.
Put in the chat what your dishes thing is.
I was just thinking that. Please comment to us what your dishes are.
We know now that with Winston, it's shoe placement.
It's not. I am a recovering shoe placement. I am through the weeds when it comes to no, but really, if there are things that I can find or be identified, and my son helps me again with this a lot because he'll say, "Are you mad?" And I'm like, "Oh, but I'm not." But I'm realizing that my behavior, which is maybe a past behavior, is just one that's like, oh, this happens. I tell him to do this. He doesn't do this, but I'm like, I'm not mad, but he's experiencing what he considers me mad. And I'm really grateful that he asks a lot. And maybe he doesn't, I'm sure he doesn't ask all the time, but when he does ask, it allows for me to stop and go, wait, am I showing you that I'm like mad? Like, why are you feeling that from me? And he'll go, oh, you did this. And then I'm able to articulate, oh, that's just this thing that sorry, that da 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 da. And I don't always have people in my life that points that out to be like, oh, hey, you're doing this thing. Is to your question, is everything okay? Because he doesn't say it that way, but it's kind of how he's asking it though. It's like, hey, are you good?
Right.
And I'm able to say, actually, wow, I've never thought about it like that. He literally is doing that for me.
Yeah.
Like, oh wow, are you cool? And I'm like, I am good. And I actually don't have anyone else really that does that like he would do it. And that's actually the blessing that we have. So if you got somebody in your life who's able to stop in the moment when you're not feeling your best or showing up your best and say, hey, are you good? You should really appreciate that person, because many of us probably are doing that and we don't even realize we aren't showing up the way we want to. Because I know there's a lot of times where he does ask, and in my mind I'm like, oh no, I'm not even closest to be angry, but I may be exhibiting behaviors that are indicative of when I am angry. Because I know that there are times that he's accurate in how I'm coming off, and I don't want to show up that way for him. So it's good to have the question asked, because it at least gives you a chance to stop and go, well, how do I want to be right now? So great question.
Go Normie or Winston Jr.
I love it.
Oh, this is great. Well, guys, until next time, as always, remember that you deserve the good life. Say that.
We'll see you guys. Have a